WNYC Studios is supported by Odoo. When you buy business software from lots of vendors, the costs add up and it gets complicated and confusing. Odoo solves this. It's a single company that sells a suite of enterprise apps that handles everything from accounting to inventory to sales. Odoo is all connected on a single platform in a simple and affordable way. You can save money without missing out on the features you need. Check out Odoo at odoo.com. That's odoo.com.
It's the Brian Lehrer Show on WNYC. Good morning again, everyone. Our colleagues at NPR's Planet Money podcast are out with a book. It's a collection of brand new reporting that centers stories of real people making everyday decisions and how those can help us understand the economics that shape so many aspects of our lives, from work to love, saving money, leisure. Joining us now to discuss some of what's in the book, as well as an event at the 92nd Street Y, is Alex Mayasi, a longtime contributor to Planet Money, and Mary Childs, a co-host of NPR's Planet Money. The new book is called Planet Money, A Guide to the Economic Forces That Shape Your Life. Alex and Mary, welcome to the local talk show side of WNYC. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks so much for having us.
We're honored to be here.
So this story in the book that goes right to AI, but kind of brings in this piece of history from the time that ATM machines first started showing up at banks. Probably most people listening think, wait, weren't there always ATM machines at banks since like the revolution? So what's your ATM angle?
So this comes from some fantastic research from James Besson, who noted that, when ATM machines, automated teller machines, first start getting installed, you would expect, it's right there in the name, automated teller machines. They're trying to automate the role of bank tellers. But something strange happens. Instead of the number of bank tellers going down as ATMs get installed, the number of bank tellers keeps going up. For decades, the number of bank tellers keeps going up. So there's some really interesting lessons from that. And one is this kind of line that many economists use, that automation tends to automate tasks, not jobs. And so we see with bank tellers that, teller machines could automate some of what they do, some of the kind of like counting cash and handing it to customers. And so bank tellers did less of that, but it opened up time for them to do other things. So, I spoke with a bank teller who had really just started her career as the first ATM was installed. And I was like, oh, were you so nervous? Were you so worried? She's like, no, not really. Because ATMs, they're still finding their footing. They still broke down all the time. But also then, they spent less of their time counting cash and more time doing things like saying, hey, would you like to sign up with a credit card with our bank? Are you interested in financial advice, retirement advice from one of our advisors? So the role of bank tellers did not disappear because of the ATM. The role of the bank teller changed.
When was the first ATM machine? I'm guessing maybe 1970s?
I believe so. The very first might have been the 60s, but when you really start seeing them getting installed in big numbers, we're talking 70s and then 80s.
Yeah, and another example you give to kind of refute the common notion that a common view of automation is that it reduces skilled artisans to unskilled laborers comes from the textile industry. And when they brought in power looms, and what happened is that the new technology upskilled workers, as you put it, instead of de-skilling them. People don't walk around much thinking about power looms and jobs these days. What happened there?
Well, you do if you grew up in Massachusetts like I did, because a required field trip is going to see the mills in Lowell, Massachusetts. But there that's a case where, yeah, like you said, we think automation often means a machine does the job, and then maybe you're just kind of like pushing a few buttons or doing the same repetitive motion every day. But in fact, working with these new power looms that were automating and increasing the productivity of creating cloth and textiles, it was hard work. It was intimidating. And in fact, they need to attract these really smart workers who could, learn how to manage this type of work. And that's why in places like Lowell, where I used to go on field trips, to recruit young, well-educated women who could pick up this work, they were kind of trying to do a version of a nice college campus. They said, we have quarterly magazines. There are literary aspects of the environment. They were trying to make it an attractive place. so that they could, get these talented young women who could pick up these very intimidating machines. And there are great kind of accounts that some of them wrote about what it was like to kind of face this tempestuous beast of these power looms for the very first time. But then, they would pick it up and their productivity would increase and increase. And one of those points, too, that I think James Besson makes in his work, others have noted, is that it's not like all the productivity was in the machine. The machine made people much more productive, but a worker's first day on the job, they were not very productive. But then, they learned how to work with these machines. They got more skilled and productivity increased. And then over time, people also learned how to improve those machines as well. So it wasn't kind of this one time only install the magic machine, workers stop being skilled. We need fewer of them. It can look very different in practice.
So on this idea of upskilling workers rather than de-skilling them when automation comes in, I see from the book that it's such a famous misconception, Mary, that economists gave it the name the lump of labor fallacy. Is there any more than what Alex was just saying about what the lump of labor fallacy is?
Well, I think that one thing that is sort of relevant and sort of painfully salient at this moment, too, is if you think about the transition from, when getting through that adaptation period can be really difficult and painful because those are not necessarily similar tasks that you're doing. You went from, using your hands to create this fabric, and then now you're suddenly in charge of a machine. That's just a different part of your brain. It's not, you're not really, it's not clear that those are easy substitutes. And so that reskilling is crucial, and that transition in the aggregate, in the economy, can be pretty painful for workers too. So I think, and you do see this too, I think there's new research coming out about the adaptation in our economy now with AI, and work from Eric Brynjolfsson and others that was presented at AEA in January showed that you actually take a productivity hit when you adopt AI as a company, like a substantial hit for the first full year of being, we have this great new tech, we're integrating AI into our systems, and then everything falls apart for a little bit. But the ones that make it through, the companies that actually do adapt to this AI, integration and train their workers to use it properly, they get to experience pretty big productivity gains. And then some of the companies just don't do great.
So that's a little bit of the lump of labor fallacy. And then you have this other related thing that's called G. Vaughn's paradox. Am I even saying that right?
This is one of those famous moments where I thought about it so many times and written it so many times, and then I'm like, I need to start saying this aloud when the book comes out. But I believe you've got it right, so kudos.
And it is?
So this paradox was first formulated in Britain when the Industrial Revolution was in full steam. And so politicians were concerned that, our economy is really, really reliant on coal. What if we run out of coal? Maybe we should come up with ways to conserve coal, technology that require less use of coal, think about the use of it. And Jevons paradox is this idea from William Jevon, if I'm remembering his first name correctly, that could actually backfire. That counterintuitively, if you come up with new technologies that use less coal, that means it's cheaper to power those machines with coal, and therefore demand for those machines and coal could increase, and then you'd be using more coal. Kind of the same way that electricity is much, much cheaper now than it used to be. So, I grew up with my mother reminding me to turn off the lights, turn off the light bulb, save electricity. And I don't when's the last time, I can't think of the last time someone told me to
Bro, I do that all the time.
Okay, Mary.
You're not spending enough time with me.
Mary still does it apparently, right? But people are much less concerned about saving money by turning off the lights. So that's an example of Jevons paradox. And I think, people are really talking about it with AI, because I think people are afraid that, if AI can do a lot of kind of the software engineering and coding that, I as a worker do, or if AI can do a lot of the kind of creating PowerPoint presentations I do, or whatever it is that you might do as a worker, you're worried, this kind of back to the lump of labor fallacy. There's this point what will be left for me to do? Mm-hmm. But Jevons paradox says, if the work you're doing gets much cheaper thanks to AI, you could do more of it. And there might be a lot more demand for it now that the price has gone down. So I think this is a great hope with our current AI moment, is that if there are industries where automation, AI is making work cheaper and faster, Jevons paradox could mean that instead of that, say, leading to layoffs and job losses, it might mean that you want to hire even more workers because you can get even more done, and there's even more demand now that you're able to lower your prices.
Well, Mary, that's the bottom line here, right? And this is also, if not counterintuitive, counter to what most people are thinking and fearing. Like just last week, Axios reported on new polling that shows nearly half of college students say they've thought at least a fair amount about changing their major because of AI's potential impact.
Yeah.
So are you from Planet Money here to say, no, wait, this may all be, get off my lawn, paranoia. Young people get off my lawn. That's supposed to be associated with old people. But paranoia about AI, that's overblown?
I think, well, first, I would personally struggle to discount the opinions of people who are more in contact with like entry level job market stuff. I just feel like that has changed so fast right now, is changing so fast right now that like I have not had to grapple with that in ages. So I feel like with respect, absolutely think they're probably onto something. But I do think, yes, you're exactly right. Like there is this fear in the economy, and it's not unwarranted, but it is a little bit like we're going to be okay. Like we have skills. In the past, they fretted in like the Industrial Revolution. They were like, what are we going to do with all this free time? Once the robots do all the work, we're going to just like have all this leisure time, and that's going to be the big societal harm. And the big thing that we have to worry about is people having too much leisure time. And I just think that we have really disproved that. I think we have found that we can make ourselves new work and new ways to work. And we are very creative in ways that the LLMs and AI systems just are not. And that is our edge, and that will continue. I do think that the realignment is real, and like probably examining if your college major is going to be something that can be replicated by an LLM really easily or not. Like making sure that you have an edge over a robot is probably wise, but I think that the edge will remain.
Listeners, we can take some calls and texts for my guest from NPR's Planet Money, Alex Mayasi, a longtime contributor, and Mary Childs, a co-host. And they are contributors to the new book, Planet Money, A Guide to the Economic Forces That Shape Your Life. And you can contribute to or ask a question about our conversation so far based on things in the book about AI and jobs and Javon's paradox and the lump of labor fallacy, or anything you always wanted to ask someone from Planet Money. Now, they can't know everything about the economy.
Thank you.
Even though the show as
We
the
do
whole
try. We do try,
absolutely does. But we'll see. You can try to push the envelope if you want, folks. 212-433-WNYC. 212-433-9692. I will also mention, and I'll mention it again at the end of the segment, that my guests, plus their colleagues at Planet Money, Darian Woods and Amanda Aronchik, who used to work here, will be in conversation with Emily Oster tonight at the 92nd Street Y. That'll be at 7 o'clock. And they sell tickets for in-person or for streaming. But let me stay on the AI section of the book, because I never heard this, but I see that back in June of 2023, Planet Money put out a podcast episode made by AI.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Right. So what did you do and what did you learn?
Well,
Mary, you were in that, right?
I was a little bit in that. Yeah, I was actually a character actor in that. So it's a little...
Because who needed a journalist? But go ahead.
Exactly. I reskilled myself. That's right. It actually was really hard. I basically tried to do the Katharine Hepburn accent. And what I found is that I really love doing it, but the quality of my accent degrades quickly. So it's like helium. I have to take a hit of a YouTube of Katharine Hepburn, quickly do my impression, and then anyway, so that was my role. It was really good to get new muscles, but we basically just wanted to see, okay, how good is this stuff anyway? And it was a 3-part series about AI and just investigating, okay, what even is possible? What can we use AI for, and what is it actually really good at, and what is it bad at? And what we found was it's really good at faking our voices. Like they just have that it's just they can do that. Fine. And so that was a little terrifying. So we made like a fake Robert Smith, a synthetic Robert Smith, longtime host of Planet Money. It was sort of terrifyingly good, except that it just like intoned a little bit wrong sometimes. Like people probably think that we're so effortless and we just do one take of, we record the episode and go about our lives in one go. We sit there and we belabor each take. We're like, by the way, by the way, by the way, by the way. And I will say the AI definitely didn't do that. I can tell from the outcome that fake Robert Smith did not practice his intonation and did not really think if he was transmitting the exact right emotion and level of breeziness per word. So there was a little degradation there, but it was also nonsensical. The episode that the AI came up with was just like, my favorite moment was where it was like, it wrote a script for like an old timey radio play, hence my Katharine Hepburn accent. And like one of the plot points involved like throwing pancakes across a room. And it's like, no, like that's not, it just randomly generated a moment in which people were like getting accosted by pancakes. And I just loved that so much because like, babe, that doesn't happen. Like the robot doesn't know that just doesn't happen. We don't get in pancake fights. I don't think anyone's ever done that. So it was funny, a little creepy, a little gross, but it was super edifying in terms of like, we kind of could rest a little easier after going through this experience of making this episode or watching the creation of this episode, because it was like, fine. It was not, we had a lot of edit notes for it. We were like, this isn't our best work. Don't ship this. This isn't ready. And it made us feel like we still have purpose.
Here's a text from a listener who kind of wants to push back on your ATMs, origin of ATMs at banks analogy to AI, and how that did not, at least immediately, result in a lower number of tellers. But the listener writes, the actual number of banks has been falling over the last 5 years. And I know one of the things that happened in my neighborhood to the bank that I've used for a long time, it used to be in this, big, beautiful, Gothic building in the neighborhood, and then it moved around to a little storefront around the corner because nobody was going in anymore. And maybe it wasn't ATMs, Alex, but maybe it was online banking.
Yeah.
But that's just another generation of automation that did take a lot of teller jobs.
Yeah, I think this is a great point and kind of helps us like resolve the story, is that, yes, like automated teller machines, it's right there in the name. It feels like that's the thing that would lead to bank teller becoming this kind of obsolete job. But it wasn't. But like our listener is absolutely correct that like now bank teller jobs have absolutely fallen over the past 10 plus years. And that is because online banking, right? That's, how much of banking has moved to laptops, to smartphones. And so I think this does also remind us that sometimes we're looking for like the very straightforward approach. Like I think sometimes with automation, we have a tendency to think like we'll match like one job or one piece of software or one machine with each human and their job. But sometimes the automation that leads to the biggest change is almost it's more like a full sea change. It's not, okay, we created a machine that can do what bank tellers do. It's, hey, now banking is all going to move online and you don't even need to go to a bank at all. So often, I think this is why the bank teller story reminds us that like automation can also often be quite slower than we expect. Mm-hmm. We didn't invent the automated teller machine and then bank tellers would have a job. The bank teller I spoke to had a full long career despite being a bank teller when ATMs were being installed by her local bank and employer. But it's absolutely the case that like over the decades, like you look back and often the jobs that were very common, 50 plus years ago are uncommon today. And that will absolutely be true in the future too, I think.
Alan in Westchester, you're on WNYC with our guests from Planet Money. Hi, Alan.
Hello, how you doing? I just called to say earlier they said that the AI may cause the price of certain things to go down. And I just think all it will do is increase profit margins for business owners and CEOs. And things will just continue to go up in price as they normally do.
Yeah, heard.
That's just my take.
Yeah. Alan, thank you. This reminds me, and I don't know if you've ever tackled this one on Planet Money, but what to me is the fallacy of baseball player salaries and the price of tickets to the stadiums.
Oh, interesting.
Right? That because the critique is because baseball players are paid so many millions of dollars now, the teams are charging more to go to the games. And so if you reduce these salaries, put salary caps and everything, then more people will be able to afford to go to baseball games. But in my opinion, the fallacy is no. The teams are going to charge as much as people are willing to pay to see the entertainment. And then they'll figure out how to divvy up the pie. So I don't know. To me, that relates to what Alan is saying, but I don't know if either of you have a take.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think with baseball, there is this element, right, where that's a good where like if more and more people get interested in baseball, you can't really like mass produce the New York Mets or the New York Yankees.
Not yet,
right?
anyway.
Like not yet anyway, right? Like it is, that's part of like why those things are so special, that there's kind of only one, Mets Yankees game per day or what have you, and only so many per season. So I think that's often a special case where I feel like sometimes we look at prices rising in things like concerts, and baseball tickets, and like that is this very particular case. I do think on like the specifics about AI, it's like, the cost of having someone produce a certain amount of software could go down. That may or may not mean that prices go down. I mean, I think it could mean that companies are able to produce products for a lower price and make more money by selling more. Like that's kind of the best case scenario. But like, I'm not sanguine either that like efficiency always and productivity gains are better
and
for
it
everyone.
Has happened with a lot of technology.
Yeah, and
right?
there's
the
this
first
moment,
televisions, the first computers, whatever, compared to now.
Yeah, and there was this moment after when the Industrial Revolution is in full swing, and there are these huge productivity gains and these titans of industry, making huge fortunes by running businesses larger than anyone ever really thought possible before. But workers did not benefit in terms of higher salaries for like decades, and so that's called Engel's pause. Which is this moment, and I really think I helped powered like Marxist critiques of capitalism and the Industrial Revolution, because you saw these huge fortunes being made, but that doesn't always mean that like workers will benefit. You have to look as well about worker power, laws around unionization, other things as well to see whether it will benefit society collectively and workers.
And even more conceptual, maybe, with all of these examples from history. From the history of tech and jobs that you've been bringing up, listener writes, to imagine that the AI revolution is equivalent to previous disruptions may be quite wrong. And that, in a way, is, one of the biggest thoughts that people could express here, right? Mm-hmm. We learn from history, but sometimes things happen that really break the mold.
Yeah, totally uncharted. I think that's completely right. And of course, I think there's a big appreciation too that like we are in a somewhat uncharted moment, and that the Industrial Revolution was enormously disruptive and totally reordered society. And we're in another one of those kinds of upheavals. But of course, the last one is not going to be that helpful of a blueprint. Like it can tell us some of the risks and some of the things that were horribly handled or like that went badly wrong that people then didn't expect. But of course, what is it they always say? Like history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. Like you'll be able to extract something from history that might help you, guide yourself or have some degree of guardrail on what's happening now based on, okay, we've been through something like this before and we can learn something from that. And like we really, really should. But no, that's completely right. Of course, it's going to be unimaginably different.
So listeners, here's what we've just done. We took one chapter of the new Planet Money book and had a conversation about the content of it. There are all these other chapters of the book, right? We could have done a little grazing. Oh, in chapter 2, you talked about this and discussed that for 45 seconds. In chapter 3, you did that. No, our approach today was to take that one chapter on AI, chapter 9, and have what was hopefully a good conversation with these co-authors of the new Planet Money book. So there's all this other stuff in the book. And tonight you'll be in conversation with economist Emily Oster at the 92nd Street Y, 7 o'clock.
Yep.
Mary, you want to preview that for our listeners who might be interested?
Oh, I'd be honored. Yes. It's going to be really fun. So it's going to be 3 parts. We have a Q&A with Alex himself, the book author. Hello, Alex. And Darian Woods and Amanda Aronchik are also joining. Darian and I have a little mini episode that we're doing at the first third of the show. And then Emily Oster is the economist, I think, most famous for her work on pregnancy and parenthood and like childhood wellness health stuff, which, you know, the book Expecting Better was like revolutionary. It came out in 2013. And so I have a ton of questions for her about how to parse information and studies and kind of defray all the chaos of the disinformation of our age. And I'm really excited to get to talk to her. She's super interesting and super thoughtful.
Alec, what's another chapter in the book?
Another chapter in the book. One of my favorites is learning lessons about for your career and building wealth from Ricky Ricardo, who I suspect many people like me grew up watching him in I Love Lucy. You know, Ricky Ricardo, his name in the show, Desi Arnaz, his real name, because he and Lucille Ball did not just create a famous, wonderful TV show. They really invented the business model of television as we know it. So career lessons from Desi Arnaz, one of my favorites. But it's hard to choose. This book was just like really a lot of fun.
There's so much
write.
in there. Yeah. It's crazy.
Pick one of yours.
Me?
Barry.
Oh, I should have been prepared for that.
It's so funny because I'm asking you all these detailed questions about obscure things from history.
I know, that was the closest to the Stumpers. What's your favorite? I was like, you can't ask me that.
Okay, no, thank you for stalling, guys. I'm ready. The Bobby Bonilla chapter. I I love compounding interest.
More baseball.
Baseball. I know I'm not that much of a baseball girl. I'm working on it, but I support everyone in their sport interest. But I just think that there was this interesting illustration of the power of compounding and like investing and the time value of money, and it all embedded in this story of a baseball guy's contract negotiations and like retirement. And it's so beautiful and, you know, New York specific. It's the best.
Well, and the Ricky Ricardo I listen to is the one who does the Yankee games in Spanish and then does Yankee podcasts in English.
Wow.
But we leave it there with my guests from Planet Money, Alex Mayasi and Mary Childs. They, along with the others they mentioned, will be in conversation with Emily Oster tonight at the 92nd Street Y at 7 o'clock. Tickets for in-person or streaming at 92Y.org, and the new book is called Planet Money, A Guide to the Economic Forces That Shape Your Life. Officially, it's out tomorrow. Thanks for coming on. This was fun.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much, Brian.